It was a late autumn night in Thunder Bay, Ontario. The roads were slick from the rain, and the headlights of passing vehicles cut through the darkness, reflecting off the pavement. A weary trucker named Jasper pulled into the parking lot of a small rundown motel by the side of the highway. The sign flickered above the entrance, and a faint buzzing noise came from the neon light. It wasn't much, but it was a place to rest for the night. Jasper had been on the road for hours, and sleep was more important than anything else at that point. He was just looking for a bed, a quiet place to crash, and maybe a hot cup of coffee in the morning. As he walked into the lobby, the stale scent of cheap carpet and dust hit him. A single, pale-faced woman sat behind the desk, her eyes wide and distant. Jasper gave her a tired smile, pulling his jacket tighter around him as he approached. "I need a room for the night," he said, his voice hoarse from the long drive. The woman nodded slowly, her hands trembling as she typed into the computer. After a moment, she glanced up at him, her face ashen. "Room 307 is open," she said, barely above a whisper. "You can have that one." Jasper didn't think much of it at first. It was just another room at a cheap motel. But there was something about the woman's voice, the way she refused to make eye contact, and that made him uneasy. He could see the nervousness in her, the way her eyes darted from the computer screen to the door and back again. "Is something wrong with it?" he asked, trying to make small talk, but she didn't answer. Instead, she handed him the key, still not looking at him. Her fingers brushed his hand, and for a moment, he felt a strange chill run up his spine. He shrugged it off as fatigue and headed for the door. The hallway was dimly lit, the smell of old wood and mildew growing stronger as he walked down the corridor. The doors to the other rooms were shut tight, and all was eerily quiet. When he reached room 307, he inserted the key into the lock. The door creaked open with a groan, revealing a room that looked normal. A bed, a dresser, a small TV on the wall. But then his eyes landed on the mirror. It was massive, ancient, framed in ornate, gold-painted wood that had chipped and faded over the years. The glass seemed too perfect, almost too clean compared to the rest of the room. It was bolted securely to the wall, and as Jasper moved closer, he noticed that it radiated an odd warmth, like something was behind it, pressing against the glass. The air around the mirror felt almost stifling, like it was holding something back. Jasper paused, his gaze shifting to the rest of the room. It was just a typical cheap motel room, the kind he had stayed in hundreds of times before. He tossed his duffel bag on the bed and set the key on the nightstand. Despite the strange feeling the mirror gave him, he convinced himself that it was just his tired mind playing tricks on him. He lay down, and within moments, sleep took over him, the hum of the motel's old air conditioning unit lulling him into a deep rest. It was 3:17 a.m. when the tapping sound woke him. At first it was so faint, he thought it was part of a dream, but then it came again, louder this time, coming from the direction of the mirror. His eyes snapped open and he turned over, still half dazed from sleep. But what he saw sent a jolt of panic through him. His reflection in the mirror was standing. Jasper's body remained still in bed, yet the figure in the mirror, his own reflection, was no longer just standing there. It was grinning. The smile stretched unnaturally wide, too wide for any human mouth. It was a twisted, sinister grin that seemed to mock him, and for a moment he felt a sharp pang of terror, his heart pounding in his chest. He tried to move, to call out, but his throat was tight, his voice stuck. He stared at the mirror, helpless, as the reflection stepped away from the wall. The figure's movements were slow, deliberate, like it knew exactly what it was doing. It reached out toward the mirror, its fingers curling around the edge. The warmth from the mirror seemed to intensify, and a low hum filled the air, vibrating through the walls. Jasper's blood ran cold. He tried to scream, to get out of bed, but his limbs felt heavy, like they were trapped in some kind of nightmare. The reflection's grin grew wider, almost grotesque, its eyes locked onto his with a chilling intensity. It raised its hand, tapping the glass again, but this time, it was not a simple tap. The sound was hollow, like the glass was hollowing out. Panic surged through him, and finally he managed to jerk himself upright, his heart racing. He stumbled to his feet, eyes still locked on the mirror. The reflection mimicked his every move, its eyes never leaving him, never blinking. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. "Is everything all right in there?" a voice shouted from outside. Jasper turned away from the mirror, his hands shaking as he fumbled for the door handle. "No, no, it's not all right," he yelled, his voice hoarse. But when he looked back toward the mirror, it was gone. The reflection was back to its normal position, standing still and silent. The smile was gone, but the feeling of dread still clung to the air. He ran to the door and threw it open, finding the night manager standing there, his face pale as a ghost. The man took one look at Jasper's wide, panicked eyes and the state he was in, and immediately pushed past him into the room. The door slammed shut behind them, and the manager glanced around, his face contorting in fear as he spotted the mirror. Without a word, he rushed to it, pulling at the frame, attempting to unbolt it, but something kept him from touching it too long. His hands recoiled as though burned. The man swore under his breath, his voice trembling. "That room, it's always been off limits," he whispered, staring at the mirror with dread in his eyes. The trucker didn't know what to say. What could he say? Then, without warning, the manager turned to him, his face suddenly grave. "I'm sorry. We need to get out of here now." Before Jasper could react, the man grabbed him by the arm, pulling him toward the door. But as they tried to leave, the air around them grew thick, and a distant sound echoed through the walls. The tapping. It was coming from inside the mirror. Jasper struggled to free himself, but the manager's grip tightened. "Don't look back," the man warned, his voice shaking. "Don't look back." Jasper froze. It was too late. Jasper couldn't help it. His eyes darted toward the mirror, despite the manager's desperate warning. In that split second, the world seemed to warp. The tapping had stopped, but something else had replaced it. Something far worse. A shadow moved within the mirror. It wasn't a simple reflection. It was alive. The figure in the mirror was no longer just a distorted version of him. It was something else entirely. Something that should not have been. It stood there, its mouth opening in a grotesque, silent scream, its hands slamming against the glass with an unnatural force, leaving ripples in the otherwise still surface. Jasper's heart pounded so loudly that it threatened to drown out everything else. The night manager's grip tightened around his arm, pulling him toward the door again, but Jasper couldn't look away. "No!" he gasped. "What is that? What the hell is happening?" The manager's eyes were wide with terror. "It's been like this for as long as I've worked here," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Room 307. It's cursed. Anyone who stays in that room, they're never the same. The reflection, it takes them." Jasper tried to process the words, his mind still racing to make sense of everything. But as he took one last glance at the mirror, he saw it. The reflection was no longer mimicking him. It was moving independently, twisting in grotesque ways, its body contorting and bending unnaturally, as though it were trying to escape. The manager yanked him back again, this time more forcefully, nearly throwing him out of the room. "We have to go." Now his voice was panicked, the urgency clear in every word. They stumbled into the hallway, the door slamming shut behind them with an unnatural finality. But even as they fled, Jasper couldn't shake the image of that thing in the mirror, the twisted version of himself, the unnatural contortions, the hands pressing against the glass. They made it to the lobby, but the strange sensation didn't leave. Jasper's skin crawled, a cold chill following him no matter how far he moved away from the room. The manager, still breathing heavily, collapsed into the chair behind the desk. His face had gone ashen, and sweat beaded on his forehead. "We're not safe here," the manager whispered, his voice breaking. "Not yet." Jasper felt a strange pang of dread wash over him. He didn't know what was worse, the fact that his reflection was trying to kill him, or the possibility that it was already too late. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. His throat felt tight, his mind numb. "That thing in the mirror," the manager continued, his voice almost hoarse. "It's not just a reflection. It's something older, something that's been here long before any of us." His voice faltered, as if recounting a long-forgotten nightmare. "The motel, it was built on the land of an old settlement. People used to live here, before the highway. People who disappeared. Some say they were taken by the reflection, trapped inside it forever. Every few years, someone new comes along, someone who unknowingly stays in that room, and the mirror takes them. Jasper shivered, feeling the weight of the manager's words crash down on him. He looked back toward the hallway, at the room where it all began. His heart raced again, the sense of something watching him growing stronger by the second. I don't understand, Jasper muttered, shaking his head. You said taken. What do you mean taken? It's just a damn mirror. The manager shook his head, the terror still present in his eyes. You don't get it. You can't get it. Once you see the reflection, once it takes you, you're gone. No one can help you. No one can even remember you. It's like you never existed. Jasper took a step back, almost tripping over his own feet. Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you warn me before I stayed in there? The manager's eyes flicked nervously toward the door. No one talks about room 307, not to customers, not to anyone. The owners, they're the ones who put the rule in place, and I don't know why, but every time someone new checks in, we hope they just ignore it. We hope they just leave. But you, he paused, his voice cracking. You've seen it now. You can't leave. You're already part of it. Jasper felt his stomach turn. His eyes went wide. What are you saying? You're saying I'm... Before he could finish, a distant sound interrupted him, soft but unmistakable. The faint rhythmic tapping from the direction of room 307. It echoed down the hallway, each tap sending a ripple of dread through his chest. The manager stood up suddenly, knocking his chair to the ground with a loud crash. No! He shouted, his face wild with panic. It's too late! It knows we're here! Jasper's breath caught in his throat as a shadow shifted near the doorway to the hallway, just outside the lobby. He felt his muscles lock in place, the sensation of something invisible pulling at him, dragging him toward that room. You have to get out of here, the manager pleaded, his voice frantic. You can't stay here. It's already in you. It's already inside. It's too late. But as Jasper turned toward the exit, he froze. A figure stood at the end of the hallway, just outside room 307. He could feel his heart stop, his blood running cold as he realized it was a reflection. A figure that looked just like him, standing in the hallway, unmoving, staring at him with those same empty eyes. The tapping came again, louder this time, as if the thing in the mirror was calling him, beckoning him back. Jasper could only stare at the door. He knew it was no longer just a room. It was a trap, waiting to claim him as its next victim. And as the lights flickered once more, the reflection in the hallway stepped forward, its grin spreading wider. It was waiting, and so was he.